Hello everyone. In today's ARC profile we'll be doing is of a Acrocanthosaurus. It knows that the Giganotosaurus is actually this hind-spined Acrocanthosaurid. That is, meet Acrocanthosaurus, or simply called the Acro, appearing much larger than expected. Acrocanthosaurus is a fearsome carnivorous theropod. While larger than a T-Rex, it's not quite as strong, however. The Acrocanthosaurus seems to demonstrate much stronger attacks the smaller their target is. In addition to this, when the Acro begins to receive a lot of damage, the Acro to resort to an interesting tactic, which involves revealing the larger side of their bodies, mitigating the damage they received considerably. If they remain in that state, the Acro seems to undergo a terrifying enraged state. So be careful. Normally being slower than T-Rex, this rush of adrenaline will make the Acro frontally fast. The Acrocanthosaurus can be found on the island, attacking anything in sight. When attacked, the Acrocanthosaurus may position itself into a shield stance, where it will then tank damage. If it takes enough damage, about 35% of its health, which it calculated before the tanking modifier, the Acro will roar in frustration, granting it the adrenaline buff, which will allow it to attack faster and do more damage. It has a simple bite, and when it bites, it activates adrenaline, makes it faster, and it will go to a shield stance. And also stomp. It only has one stomp, but when it activates its adrenaline buff, it will stomp 3 times. The Acrocanthosaurus can be a formidable opponent in battle, as it possesses a shield stance as well as the adrenaline buff, and it can easily kill survivors that aren't prepared to fight one. It is advised to fight one mounted, rather than on foot. Fighting an Acrocanthosaurus with a creature that is similar to the larger drag weight, then it will ensure that the creature takes minimal damage. It is also important to note that the Acro can outrun a survivor while out of the shield stance. If necessary, the survivor can inflict enough damage in order to able to its shield stance, at which point they can escape. The Acrocanthosaurus should be fought with a creature, as they reduce the likelihood of a wild one taking enough damage to activate the adrenaline, and deal significantly more damage to the survivor and creatures. And danger. If an Acro successfully activates its adrenaline without being killed, it becomes a force to be reckoned with, doing almost double its original melee damage. The survivor should take caution when on foot or on a creature mount with a lower drag weight, as the aggro can outrun a survivor while out of its shield stance. It also does more damage to the targets smaller than it with its stomp. Tamed Acrocanthosaurus pose a greater threat, as it becomes difficult to kill the rider when the aggro enters a shield stance. The shield bash attack of an aggro in a shield stance can also knock back a large amount of creatures, so survivors should be wary of environmental hazards like cliffs. In the wild, aggros are often found in groups of 2 or 3. These groups often consist of opposing genders, enabling the aggro's mate boosted, either as mated pairs or siblings. They may be dangerous and powerful, but they have weaknesses. Fighting an Acrocanthosaurus with a strong creature that has higher drag weight will make the process of killing one much easier. When a wild or riderless aggro enters a shield stance, the survivor can't stop attacking in order to get it to the exit of its stance and prevent it from being able to activate its adrenaline. And here's the variant, the Scorched Earth Acrocanthosaurus. Much different from the island Acro. This one has feathers on top of its head, and and much different from its Earth counterpart. Anyway, back to the video. Now, now you might be wondering, can it be tamed by knockout tame? Well, technically no, because it's a lot more different from any other taming method. Now, because the aggro is immune to ranged tranquilizers, meaning trank darts and trank arrows are not effective against an aggro. The only way to render an Acrocanthosaurus unconscious is by feeding it either narco berries, biotoxin, or narcotics. Whenever it roars in frustration, place it in the last slot of your hotbar and run up inside the mouth of an acro and aim for the jaw, that is top jaw, and feed it. It is recommended to use a rifle, as this allows the survivor to count the shots needed to put the acro into its shield stance and shots needed for its activate its adrenaline. Either use a shotgun or rifle can use instead, since exceeds damage is ignored and it will ruin the taming effectiveness until the unconscious animation is played. But you have to watch out, because it will fool ya if it roars in frustration. And here's why. Whenever you shoot at it, it will do a frustration roar, but it will not, well, because it will do a low roar, and if you don't see it to put in the mouth, that means it's fake. But if it does a for real roar frustration, when it does a high pitch roar, that's when you put narcotics or biotoxin into its mouth. Because remember, when it does a low roar, it means it's faking you out. If the player is, for whatever reason, to use firearms, trapping the aggro and using a wyvern leveled in melee damage could work too. It is recommended to use an ice wyvern, fire or crystal wyvern. Not recommended because lasting DOT effects may ruin the taming effectiveness. Poison wyvern not recommended because gas clouds pose a same problem. Lightning wyverns are not recommended because the player may find themselves choosing between a risk of dying to their own wyvern's breath or missing the window to feed the aggro. Keep in mind weapon might still be required to utilize the taming process, and that aggro may remain aggroed on a wyvern, causing the head too high for the player to reach without jumping, so it's highly risky. Once tamed, it can be used for many things, like while its shield stance, Acrocanthosaurus will able to tank damage while it is taking a damage in its state. It will build up its adrenaline. Once it's full, it receives a 35-second buff, which regenerates 0.2% health and boosts melee damage, resistance, and speed. And they can also take hits from alpha creatures when utilizing its shield stance, and can easily lower level 1s. However, the aggro are at risk when facing higher level alpha T-Rex and should be leveled in health and melee damage to ensure victory. And bullet sponge. The shield stance is an effective way to soak auto turrets and other range attacks, as it transforms the aggro as a living shield for for survivors and creatures, including the rider. The Acrocanthosaurus may also activate its adrenaline if it takes enough damage, which allows it to some time to back off to regain health or bring in other creatures. While in its shield stance, the Acrocanthosaurus is able to damage metal structures, which makes it incredibly useful in raids when leveled in health and melee. If used properly, an Acrocanthosaurus can be used to take on bosses of the island and scorched earth. When an Acrocanthosaurus activates its adrenaline, they gain increased health regeneration, attack speed, and melee damage. This ability can prove to be critical in a boss battle, though the survivors should always have a backup animal. Big Acrocanthosaurus are incredibly effective against the brood mother in particular, as they are immune to torpor, means that they aren't knocked unconscious. During the fight, the brood mother's attacks have a potential to quickly pull it into an adrenaline buff to allow it to deal increased damage if attempting the strategy. Well-bred, mate-boosted Acrocanthosaurus with good saddles should be used along with Daedon to help heal the damage taking in order to enter adrenaline. The shield stance may negate some damage, but it isn't nearly as much of a reduction as the Megatherium's insect killer buff. Since the shield bash of an Acrocanthosaurus can damage stone structure, this particular attack faced no damage reduction when used against rock elementals. This can prove particularly useful on scorched earth. And that's it for the Acrocanthosaurus. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you later, guys.